Good afternoon, Chair. Your meeting is now live.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, members. I'm Leo Madden, Chair of the Governance and Audit and Standards Committee, and welcome to this virtual meeting, which has been broadcast to enable the press and the public to view it. We are meeting virtually in response to the limitations placed on governance by the COVID-19 pandemic. The City Solicitor has advised that in accordance with Section 78 of the Coronavirus Act 2020, this meeting will be run by reference to the model standing orders as set out in the Local Authorities Coronavirus Flexibility of Local Government Meetings, or Local Authority Meetings, close the brackets, so I'm so through. Regulations 2020 number 392. It says here, but it's entirely up to yourselves, could members and officers turn their microphones off when not speaking to avoid potential feedback? I've waited for 5 minutes for people to come in some stages. So what I'd like to do now is to ask the members who have arrived to introduce themselves. Thank you. Could I start with you, Judith?
Councillor Judith Smythe for St Jude's Ward and a member of this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Neil Young.
Councillor Neil Young, representing Copner Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Simon Bosher.
Councillor Simon Bosher, present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor John Ferret will be late, and we're still awaiting Councillor Peter. Apparently, Councillor Tom Wood is trying to log in, so he should arrive at some stage. Okay, members, thanks very much. Can I ask the officers then who are here to introduce themselves? We have Sophie Mallon. Sophie, there you are.
Hello, hi, afternoon. Yeah, I'm Sophie Mallon and I head up the Commercial Legal Department at Portsmouth City Council, and I'm standing in Peter Bolf.
Peter Bolf, thank you. Julian Pike.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair. My name is Julian Pike and I'm Deputy Director of Finance.
Thank you, Julian. Michael Lloyd.
Hello, Chair. I'm Michael Lloyd, Finance Manager for Technical and Financial Planning.
Thank you. Paddy May.
Hello, Chair. Paddy May, Corporate Strategy Manager, Portsmouth City Council.
Oh, Paddy, it's nice to see you again. I haven't seen you for a long time.
Indeed.
Helen Magri.
Good afternoon, Chair. Helen Magri. I'm the Data Protection Officer and Corporate Information Governance Officer for Portsmouth City Council.
Lovely, thank you. Lizzie Goodwin.
Afternoon, all. Elizabeth Goodwin, Lizzie, Chief Internal Auditor and CIRO for Portsmouth City Council.
Thank you. Paul Somerset.
Chair, he is likely to join us at a later stage.
Okay, well, somebody can tell me. No, he doesn't have to declare it, I don't think. Richard Locke, I can see you there, Richard.
Good afternoon, Chair. Richard Locke, Acting Procurement Manager for the Council.
That's right, yeah. And Vicky Pletas.
Correct. That's very good, Chair.
I know. I'm training people how to say your surname.
Thank you very much. Yes, Vicky Pletas, Democratic Services. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. The first item is apologies for absence. I don't think we have any from what so far. Is that correct, Vicky? So we're waiting for people to come, aren't we?
That's correct, Chair. Possibly Councillor Farrett has sent apologies that he may be late.
Okay, right, thank you. Any declarations of interest, members? None. Okay. I'm going to give Councillor Neil Young, this is your starring role.
My only starring role, Councillor Madden.
I'm doing the minutes of the 3rd of March of this year, and we couldn't clear them before because you and I were the only people who were at the meeting who were still on the committee. So, are you happy with the minutes of the meeting of the 3rd of March 2020?
I am.
Thank you. So, are you happy to propose those?
I'm happy to propose them. Yeah.
Thank you, and I'll second them. So, Vicky, there we are. Okay, so those minutes are agreed. Thank you. 25th of September minutes. Sorry, I had to leave that meeting, but Simon very kindly took it. Simon. So we go through that for accuracy in matters arising. Okay. And I'll do them page by page, and the pages are numbered on the papers that we've got. So page 19, page 20, just jump in, members, if there's anything there. Page 21, page 22, page 23, page 24, page 25, page 26. Are they agreed? Okay.
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, could I make a request?
Go
on. I've not received a hard copy of the gas report, so I'm having to do this online, which I don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
But it doesn't refer to the big numbers throughout the report, only the little numbers.
Okay.
Could I ask that you just use the little numbers, because otherwise I'll have no relevance to the page numbers that you're referring to.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I don't know whether we're supposed to receive hard copies of these reports as we're in virtual meetings or not, but the only ones I ever receive are full council.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Well, I'm sure if you make a request to Vicky, she'll send you a copy. Which I did, because I'm half blind anyway, so I couldn't read all that stuff on the screen. I just wonder, members, would you be happy just to move the agenda around slightly, because most people will be here for the full meeting, but Paddy May won't be. Paddy, we can do Paddy, I think, and go. Paddy's got a couple of items. Paddy, what are they? The annual governance statement and risk and assurance management policy. Would we be happy to do those, members? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So Paddy, Paddy, if you'd be all right. Annual governance statement.
And just go to the first item.
Item 5.
Yeah. So a reminder that this committee receives the annual governance statement every year, and that the signed version is included as part of the statement of annual accounts. This report is seeking formal approval from the committee for the final version for 2019-20. The committee has previously seen and agreed previous drafts of the annual governance statement, and I think the only changes from this one are mostly related to some tidying up and some typos that I think were pointed out at the previous Governance Audit and Standards Committee. The statement exposes the risks and governance issues for 2020-2021 as well. I'm a bit concerned about controversial. On page 13 of the report onwards, I'm afraid I'm not sure what page that is of the little numbers. This is done through a review of the progress with the 2019-20 statement, and then updates on the basis of the current understandings. We'll be updating on progress with this next year. I'd also like to point out that within the annual governance statement on page 15 of the report, there are a series of risks that are specific to the COVID pandemic. These include, for example, a changed assurance framework, where, for example, we were required to get grants out to businesses as quickly as possible. That was the clear direction we received from government, and there were sort of league tables produced by government and so forth. And this does mean that, through that, there's certainly an increased risk of fraud in terms of less checks than we might normally have done. There's also less external regulation than normal. So I think generally during the COVID pandemic, there's probably just a sort of a changed assurance framework in place. Clearly, we'll need to work through the implications for this as we move forward into the recovery cycle. So that's really all I've got to say about that item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I haven't marked anything in the report because I've seen it before, as you rightly say so, about most members, I suspect. I don't know, any comments or any questions, members? Can we accept that report? Take care. Thank you, Paddy. We'll note that report. So item 6, Paddy, I think you're doing as well, aren't you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is the approval for the risk and assurance management policy. This policy comes every 2 years to the committee for approval. The policy has been brought up to date in line with internal audit recommendations from a recent audit that was undertaken by them. The policy clearly highlights the roles of different parts of the organisation in regard to risk. including this committee. And just to say that the most up-to-date version of the risk register will come to the next meeting of the committee as part of the quarterly performance management report. So risk is, part of that report, and therefore you will see the updated risk register that's been developed in line with this policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paddy. Again, I haven't marked anything on my papers. Anything, members, any comments, any questions? No? Paddy, thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Jeff.
I hope everybody is as quick as you today.
Good, for your sake, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Right, we'll go back to the agenda then, members, if that's all right. Let me go. Just a minute. So we've got. Right, item 4. The audit.
I think that Councillor Tom Wood has now arrived, so could you just check he hasn't got any interests?
Okay, Tom, could I first of all thank Tom and welcome him onto the committee. I think it's the first time, and certainly he has been on the committee when I've been on it. So thank you very much, Tom. Tom, have you any interest to declare?
I don't have any interest, no.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So can we go to item 4 then, the external audit report as I put it, but Helen and David?
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, members. Sort of set a challenge to try and keep our report as short as Paddy managed, but we'll do our best. Before we talk in any detail on the audit results report that is included with the papers, I'd just like to update members on the timeline for completing the audit. So the deadline for publishing accounts on the website, on your website, is the 30th of November. Yeah. And as members will be aware, our audit was planned to start sort of towards the back end of the period. So we started our audit in early October, and I would say that very good progress was being made on the audit until we hit the second lockdown, which is not necessarily a complete lockdown, but a key member of our team who was carrying out the work for in the sort of highest risk areas of the audit was due to return home, which is overseas, for his engagement celebrations, and he was due to leave once the audit was completed. Because of the lockdown arrangements and his concern that he wasn't going to be able to get away, we allowed him to leave earlier, but that has put a bit of a hole in our audit team. And so that kind of disrupted our arrangements for completing by the end of November. We've had discussions with officers about that, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank Julian, Michael, and the rest of the finance team for their understanding, because our options were to try and find somebody else to step in and complete the work, which would have been somewhat disruptive, I think, to the finance team, given the key role that Farhad was playing. And so we have agreed that because he is back from hopefully his engagement celebrations in the first week of December, that we will complete the audit in the couple of weeks at the beginning of December and certainly before Christmas. So this is no reflection on the work that's been done by the finance team, and indeed I don't think it's really any reflection on the audit team either. This is purely a circumstance linked to the rather, well, maybe it was unexpected, maybe not, but the timing of this second period of the lockdown. Just in terms of the work, page 33 of our report.
Sorry, can I come in there? I mean,
of course, sorry.
The matter was raised by David when we had the meeting to see if there were any questions in relation to the statement of accounts, and we did express our concern about it. And we are concerned that I think we need assurances as members, because I've got to sign off the letter, and it's supposed to be done by the 30th of November. And we're concerned that we might get put on the naughty step at the very least, or there'll be some reputational damage to us.
Okay. So if I can reassure you, Chairman and members, there is currently no naughty step. So the naughty step that I think some members will recall there being 2-3 years ago no longer exists. So there is no longer a list published of audits that are not completed by the deadline. But I think it's also really important to say that the deadline of the 30th of November is not for audited accounts. The deadline of the 30th of November is for a set of financial statements to be placed on the website, either audited or with an explanation of why they have not been, why the audit is not complete. So we will be agreeing a form of words that appropriately reflects the circumstances with officers to do that. In terms of reputation, as I said, I think the very important thing that as members you need to understand, this is not a reflection on either the quality of work of your team, or as I said, it's not a reflection of the quality of work of my team either, or delays as such. So it's not that we have had any problems in undertaking the audit or getting the assurances that we need. This is purely a factor that a member of our team, we took the decision to allow to take the personal circumstances into account. And allow a change in holiday arrangements under quite exceptional circumstances, and we don't have the right person to bring back in and replace at that point, and we don't want to unnecessarily disrupt your team either. There will be a significant number of other authorities that will not have their accounts audited by the 30th of November. But in a number of those cases, it will be because of either issues with the quality of the financial statements or the working papers, or different issues in terms of audit resourcing, i.e., just not enough staff. And that's not just for EY, that's other firms that we understand. So I'd just like to reassure you that I don't think that there will be a reputational impact for the council from this.
Okay, can I just? Yeah, no, and I do accept that somebody had to go off to get married or go to a wedding or whatever, and that's fine, that's no problem. But, we would have thought that people in the private sector had better back up than perhaps local government has, and that was the concern. Julian, could you comment on this?
Thank you, Chair. I think the comment I would make is that it is in our interest to get the audit completed as expediently as possible. And the way to achieve that outcome is to keep the team that's been doing the audit for this entire period consistent. So I think we would actually arrive at a faster opinion by keeping the team the same than if the team was swapped out. And so it was pragmatic to say, whilst it's not ideal, the fastest way of us getting an approved set of an audit opinion would be to keep the team intact and not ask Helen to swap team members out.
Okay, well, thank you, Julian. I accept that. There's no naughty step, and it won't do us any reputational damage. But I mean, I hope in future that whatever dates we agree, we changed this actually from July, didn't we, to November, and I hope whatever dates we agree, they'll be stuck to. And if any foreseen problems come along, that somebody will do something about it. But anyway, Helen, just carry on then, if you would.
So, Chairman, if I may, and I know Councillor Bosher has his hand up, so I will just respond, if I may, to that. The change in deadline from July to November, originally, yes, we did ask if we could complete the audit somewhat later. Actually, the deadline is now the 30th of November. So the government changed there was a change in the regulations to move the deadline to the 30th of November. So that one is just to address that. Also, if I could, just to be very clear that our team member has gone back for his own engagement celebrations, which in his culture are, particularly important. So, from our perspective, it was something that we felt we needed to accommodate. So it's not just to attend a wedding, I think is probably what I'd just like to correct any impression of that. Sorry, Councillor Bosher.
You're entitled to take whatever decisions you have to take, and we have got no problem with it. We've got no control over it. It's just the concern that we might be seen to be damaged somehow. But however, Councillor Bosher.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm sort of on the same page that you are. I mean, I fully appreciate the situation, but effectively, as I understand what you've just been saying, Helen, this is not of a making of Portsmouth City Council. It's entirely to do with your own staff and resources, I see it. Are we going to have sight of, this wording you're talking about, which website will this be going on to? The PCC website or government website?
So the wording will be on the Portsmouth website. So a copy of your financial statements as they stand will be placed on the website with a wording to say why the audit is not complete, and we will agree that wording with officers so that it is clear why the audit is not completed. And it will also give an estimated I suspect we will look to have an estimated completion date. But as Julian said, the discussions that we had with officers were, we could keep pushing through and try and get the work done with effectively not the ideal team, which would also put completing by the deadline at risk, or we can wait effectively and build our team. And I would say that the audit is very largely complete. There is it is not going. We are absolutely intending to complete this within the next 2 weeks after the deadline. Within the next 2 weeks of December. So we're not in the same position that we were 3 years ago, where there were more issues that needed to be dealt with.
Because we're talking about PCC reputational damage or not, as the case may be. That would also apply to this committee and indirectly to you, Chair, for not having signed them off in due time. Can I ask then that the committee members actually get sight of this wording that's going to go on the website before it's actually published? Because I think if we are if you like, and perhaps I'm being a bit emotive here, the four guys by default on this as this committee which signs it off. But I think at the very least, we should have the opportunity to see that wording before it actually gets published.
Sorry, Chairman, I'd be very happy to work with Julian to draft some wording at the start of next week and share it. So Julian, I'm sure you'll want to comment.
I was going to echo exactly what you just said, Helen. So yes, no problem with that at all.
Okay, Councillor sorry, Simon, is that okay?
Yeah, that's it. I'm just working out how to put my hand down now.
Yeah, I know. Councillor Judith Smythe?
I just was going to say the same as Councillor Bosher, so thank you for that. But I wanted to add that we do need to bear in mind that when we're retendering for this sort of thing, one of the reasons that the 5 or 6 largest companies that do local authority audits, we choose very much on the basis of capacity. And if I was sitting here in a middle-sized or a smaller consultancy that has the skills and realised that I might have a better chance next time, I think it would be something we should bear in mind. One of the reasons that local authorities choose people like EY is because of capacity. I have no problem with the solutions. I have no problem with your how you've done it and what the proposal is, but I just think we need to bear that in mind.
If I may, if I may, Chairman, just for Councillor Smythe's benefit, to a certain extent, the way in which the contract is awarded for the external audit for Portsmouth City Council chose to join the procurement through public sector audit appointments. So I suppose effectively what I'm saying is you couldn't choose us, nor could we choose you. We were kind of put together, as it were, through PSAA. Quite what choices will be, how both the City Council will choose to go through a process when the 5-year contract is up. I fully understand. It's just to explain that. I
understand that. It's just that it is always the thing that the larger companies guarantee to us, and now we haven't had it. And it's fine. What we're doing is great, and I appreciate your work, but we ought to just bear it in our minds.
Okay, well, we spent a long time in this one. Sorry, can we get back to the report, Helen? Because there's a lot of updates, but in the executive summary and other bits of the report that you were going to give us today.
Yeah, Chairman, how would you, in terms of approach, very happy just to focus very much to give you updates on the work that was outstanding. So that was on page 33, using the large numbers of the report. For Councillor Bosher's benefit, it's page 7 of our actual report. I don't know if that helps or not. So that sets out where there was work outstanding. If we focus on that, is your preference then that we would stop and then take questions? Would that be easier for you, Chairman?
I think it probably will be for members. Will it just to, you know, each particular point, some points there won't be any questions or comments at all. But yes, if you would do that, Helen, if that's okay. Thank you.
In that case, David, please could I ask you maybe to just take through where we are on each of those areas of outstanding work?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon. So the first one is testing of property, plant and equipment and investment property, principally valuations and additions. So the work on valuations is still ongoing. That relates to a couple of the areas of risk which are explained further on in the report. We do now have the work through from our internal specialist on that, which we need to go through. And then there is some testing still ongoing through the local audit team. The work on additions is now substantially complete. And subject to final review, there are no issues arising from that. And again, that pertains to one of the significant risks later in the report. Testing of expenditure is now substantially complete. There is some work remaining to be completed on disclosures, but that is now further progressed than it was when the report was submitted into papers. In terms of pensions, again, that work is substantially complete. Been in discussion with officers around one audit difference arising in our work on pensions, but which is not material to the financial statements. And the work on creditors, again, there's just some residual documentation to be done there, but otherwise that is substantially complete. The value for money risk-based work remains ongoing. We're reviewing the supporting information for that work. It had taken us a while to sort of get that information together, so that work is still ongoing at this time. Our review of the authority's going concern assessment, again, is well progressed. Just needs some revisions before it can go into the internal consultation process, which we have to go through on all of our audits this year, because that feeds into the potential wording of the auditor's report at the end of the audit process. General audit procedures, that's really referring to a number of tasks that we undertake under the ISAs, which are not substantive testing of balances within the accounts, but are other considerations that we're required to undertake in respect of the audit as a whole, and some of those do still remain ongoing. The other points which are under the sort of next subheading on the page are to do with sort of the overall concluding procedures that we undertake at the end of the audit. And so those do remain to be completed contingent on the completion of the bulk of the outstanding substantive work. The one there which is subject to a slightly different time frame is the whole of government accounts, and that work can only really be completed once the financial statements work is finished.
Thank you, David. So, Chairman, I think that's an update, and that also provides the same update for each of the areas of focus throughout the report. But if there are any specific questions or comments that members have, David or I will be happy to try and answer those.
Okay, thank you. So you've more or less, David, I'm a bit confused because we've got all this massive paper which I've read and marked up some of it, but actually you've covered the whole report. Is that correct?
We were trying to be brief and
okay.
summarising, Chairman, but we can be in more detail if you would like us to.
No, that's fine. I thought you'd just complete the executive summary. Any questions or points, members? No? 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 Okay. Judith, please.
Looking down on your page 8, big page 34, these is your list of some of the outstanding issues and things. I'm aware, for example, let's just draw attention very briefly as an example to the valuation of land buildings and investment property. There's been quite a big movement in that since the end of the close of the financial year. Will you be anticipating anything there, or will your work complete as to the end of March? So
if I start, David, and then you perhaps pick up.
Yeah, sure.
So we are looking at that the values within the accounts are fairly stated as at the 31st of March. So the work is most is largely focused on that. However, we are also mindful that if there was a significant movement post balance sheet, should that be disclosed? Is that fair enough, David? But largely it's focused on the 31st of March.
Yes, that's fair. As Helen says, the audit
I
work is
understand there
focused on
has
the
been a
balance sheet.
considerable drop. Is that something you would consider or not?
I think it would need to be some circumstance that was particularly specific to Portsmouth City Council, as opposed to potentially, a drop in relation to, say, the impact of COVID. That would be more likely to be picked up through the audit work next year when we were looking at the valuation of the assets in the following financial year, I think. Is that fair to say, Helen?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Judith?
Mm.
Okay. Any other points or questions on this particular report, members? Can we note it? Okay, thank you very much. Go on.
Chairman, if I may just say, our intention will be to reissue the report once the work is complete, and we will agree with officers the most appropriate way of circulating that to members.
Okay, thank you. And thank you. Can we then move on to annual statement of accounts 1920? You've had several emails on this, members asking if there's any. Well, there was an urgency to it, and there still is an urgency to the extent that we still have to put something up by the 30th of November, or will do, and we'll see what external audit have got to say and agree that, hopefully. But what we did, we had a meeting a few weeks back just to see if there were any particular questions that member, so that officers coming today would be in a position to answer them or incorporate them into the report. And then I asked Vicky to send out an email, which she did. So I don't know if there's any, and I think today there was a bit of tweaking or a bit of an amendment to them that you put out. Julian, I think. Some of the small bits that I picked up at the last meeting. So do you want to? Would you speak to the statement of accounts then, Julian?
Yes, thank you, Chair. If I could just give you a very short introduction. The initial planning for the preparation of the statement of accounts began as far back as October 2019, with work commencing in earnest in January 2020. The accounts payable and accounts receivable subledgers were closed as at the 31st of March during the first week of April. And by the end of April, all the finance teams had completed the closure of their service revenue accounts, which was only 1 week later than what was originally planned, and a very good outcome, bearing in mind we were in the grip of the current pandemic at that stage, with staff working remotely in less than ideal circumstances. Mike Lloyd and his team then took over to produce the statement of accounts, which are before you today, and Chris Ward, in the capacity of Section 151 officer, signed the draft statements on 30th of July 2020. And he subsequently re-signed this latest version, which includes the correction of a number of typographical errors and 7 non-trivial amendments, which we have agreed with our auditors. Alongside this work, the external auditors met with us in January to plan their visits. They completed their interim review in July, and they returned in October to undertake the full audit, which has resulted in the audit results report, which you noted earlier on this agenda. Appendix D of that report, of which the chair and the Section 151 officer will be asked to sign. On the 6th of November, members of the Governance and Audit and Standards Committee received a presentation of the Statement of Accounts, a copy of which has been included with this agenda for information. During that presentation, and also as previously circulated, members were advised of 4 non-trivial changes to the Statement of Accounts, which we had agreed with our auditors. And since that meeting, we have agreed a further 3 non-trivial amendments, which have also been previously circulated. And I will ask Mike Lloyd to take you through these additional amendments now, along with the recommendations on the report.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Mike.
Yeah, okay. Yes, there's 3 non-trivial adjustments we've made. The first one relates... Yeah.
Chair, would it be okay for me to share the screen so that people can see the amendments that Mike is talking to?
I think that'd be helpful, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully you should be able to see that now. If somebody could confirm for me that they can see that screen.
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah.
You've got to scroll down a minute, obviously.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I'll follow Mike's lead.
Okay, so the First Amendment we've made concerns the risks arising from financial instruments note, which included a table of the maturities on our borrowing. Unfortunately, we omitted a loan which we took out late in the financial year in March, and some of the loan profiles hadn't been rolled forward correctly. So you've got a table with the original repayment profile and the revised one in the appendix. The second amendment concerns the related parties note, and in part came out of the briefing meeting on the 6th of November when we answered a member question. We found there was some income included in the note, and upon reviewing it, our interpretation was that it should only include expenditure. So there's some slight differences in the amount of money we paid Gosport, the Clinical Commissioning Group and Southampton City Councils. The third and final non-trivial amendment concerned the operating leases note to the accounts, where the City Council is the lessor, and we hadn't carried the figure from one working paper or spreadsheet to another, and consequently we'd understated the rent that was due to the council in the period over 5 years, and in consequence also the total rents due under the leases. So that's the amendments. Moving on to for recommendations, what the purpose of a covering report is to seek the committee's approval to the statement of accounts, and also because the audit isn't yet complete and it's possible that further amendments may be required, to ask the committee to delegate to the chair authority to sign the accounts off after this meeting. And obviously I'll do my best to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michael. Members, any questions or points? No. No. Okay, so we had the external auditors, and we just had the internal, we just had Julian and Michael. So since we haven't got everything complete yet, because of extraneous circumstances, are you all right if things are delegated to me as the chair to find? It'll be fairly small beer if there's anything anyway, I suspect, Michael, wouldn't it?
Should be, yeah.
Yeah. Is that okay, members? Okay, thank you. So we dealt with item side. Thank you, Julian, and thank you, Michael, for that. But you're back again with Treasury Management mid-year report.
Yes.
Item 8.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this report will be going on to the Cabinet and Council for approval, and is brought to this committee for scrutiny. In terms of our borrowing activity, we previously reported that we borrowed £60 million in Q1. There were no further borrowings in Q2. Our investment returns, unfortunately, are on a downward trend, in line with the expectation that bank base rate will remain low for a long time. The report has been to the cabinet briefing meeting, and some amendments will be made to improve the clarity of the report. In particular, where the report refers to alternative borrowing sources to the Public Works Loans Board, that will be elaborated to say that the main alternatives will be to borrow from other local authorities, financial institutions such as insurance companies, pension funds and some banks, and the Municipal Bonds Agency.
Michael, I think that's fine, but I think we have a paper in front of us, and I think if we're going to agree it, we'll need to know the amendments and where they are in the paper. Could you tell us, and just to be clear, thank you.
Yeah, certainly. So all the amendments are in the appendix to the report, and the ones concerning alternative sources of borrowing are in paragraph A3, and it's a paragraph, third one down from the graph.
On page 3 of the exempt report. Sorry, not the exempt report, the appendix.
The appendix.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the words that you're changing, Michael? I can see all this in front of me.
We're not actually changing the words as such.
Okay.
Previously, the report simply said that the council would need to fundamentally reconsider alternative sources of borrowing, and all we've done is elaborate it to list the main alternative sources of borrowing.
So you will have incorporated into that then, I was going to ask a question which I don't need to, the Municipal Boards Agency then, that'll be incorporated into that particular bit, will it?
It will as an option for borrowing, yes.
Okay. Yep.
Yep, okay. And the second amendment is in paragraph A4 on investment activity, and in that section, on the third paragraph down, we'll be adding a sentence to say that it is possible to insure deposits with banks against the risk of a bank defaulting through a financial instrument known as a credit default swap, or CDS. So we're simply hopefully making it clearer what a credit default swap is.
Yeah. I get that. I get it.
Yeah, okay. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Any questions or points, members? No, I don't have any. So, again, thank you for the report, Michael, and thank you for the amendments to it. And it is going to Cabinet anyway, as you say, on the 1st of December.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Item 9, which I hope members have, it was sent out after the report, but it's we've got Sophie Mallon. Hi, Sophie. PCC Company Shareholder Committee Terms of Reference.
Hi. Thanks, Chair. So the basis of this report is off the back of the Cabinet decision that was taken in March to formalise, as per the Constitution, a shareholder committee function. And as part of that report, there was the recommendation for the terms of reference for the shareholder committee to be sent here for review. So they're included at Appendix A. There was also some best practice guidance included at Appendix B. And this report seeks for a recommendation for a delegation to the City Solicitor to work with the existing constitutional documents. So that's the individual company constitutional documents to ensure that they're brought in line with those recommendations and best practice guidance documents. Okay. So yeah, if I don't see any questions, if you want me to go through the terms of reference themselves or the document that talks around those best practice that have been picked up.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, I don't think it's a conflict of interest, but I was on the Cabinet when we made that decision. Am I allowed to review it if I was on the body at the other time? Is that a thing?
I think you are. But, it's not a personal, I think, Tom, but Sophie, you can answer the question.
Yeah.
As well.
No, there's no issue with that. Essentially, these are the terms of reference rather than the decision itself that was made.
Fabulous.
Could I just a couple of little amendments? That's all. Judith, will be with you in a sec. Sorry. On the draft shareholder committee terms of reference, at item 2.4, it strangely says the leader will be the chairman of it, and then we talk about a deputy chair and a chair later. Could that be changed to chair, which is what we tend to do these days? Yeah. And Sophie, when I read that legal bit, Appendix 2, I didn't print it off because there was too much of it. There was mention of oversight. I presume that means this panel. Could you expand a bit on what this panel would do? We haven't agreed the terms of reference or whatever we need to do today. What will our role be thereafter?
Yeah, this is a point. So essentially, the kind of overall governance is it should be ensured by the shareholder committee function that gives that cross-party oversight, which you would envisage should be happening in our current constitutional form, but actually it isn't, because there is a bypass route by which the companies can act. So the terms of reference here don't reference this committee, but we need to tidy that up, because as per the constitution, decision making, member conflict and things like this will automatically go up here. We'll cover that as it already does.
Yeah. Okay, so there'll be another paper then at some stage. Presumably we've got to go to council anyway, deciding who the members are going to be. It's one of 5 members, so that'll go to council, and there might be a bit more information based on that legal report that from some legal people that you know might not be in. Is that correct?
Exactly. So essentially, we're yet to, once these are agreed in terms of the actual membership, we can get the formulation of the shareholder committee up and running. And post that, then the work will start in terms of ensuring PCC companies are feeding into that, and their constitutional documents do that. So that's the work then that's then the delegation would be to the city solicitor to work that process up, to include and align it to our existing functions as per the constitution.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smythe?
I mean, I remain a bit worried and a bit confused about this. I mean, it does seem to me that it would be possible for the majority shareholders, who would be automatically from the administration in control at the time, could override others' concerns. And it seems to me that I don't quite understand, given what you've written in this constitution, and I've got quite a good experience of writing constitutions. What would happen if there was a great big bust up? I don't see, it's all about oversight and looking at annual statements of intent and looking at accounts and that sort of thing. But if there was a great big bust up at any stage, I don't see how that would be resolved, or where the decision would go to next, or how an external body would be invited in to adjudicate and make sure things are right. There's no fail-safes in here, it seems to me.
Completely. I take that point.
Makes me very worried. I mean, all the governance things that I've drawn up have got some kind of appeal, fail-safe, inspectorate, audit, the ability of minorities on the shareholders committee to draw in an independent advisor, that kind of thing is not mentioned. I think it's all a bit. I mean, I can see you've done a good job and it's good to have something, but it's not good enough yet for me.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And essentially what these are is just initial terms of reference of the shareholders committee. What is yet to come and what needs to come is the constitutional update, which refers to the shareholder committee and how that interfaces with our existing constitution. And as you say,
I'd like to recommend that we note this, but don't approve it till we've seen the whole kit and caboodle, because it's meaningless on its own and a bit loose for me. Yeah, especially, and we do need to do it fairly quickly, because Rablin are now beginning to commit money to developments. And these things are also governed, I believe, by external standards. There are things that auditors like to see and don't like to see, and I'm not entirely content that that's in there. And there are also conventions to do with the powers of local government that I don't see mentioning here. I would like to have seen some mention of a power that was used in order to inform this terms of reference, because I must say the whole thing makes me a bit nervous. I'm very happy to accept, this is work in progress, but I'm not very happy to approve it or anything until we've seen the relationships up and down and the acts under which this has been done.
Yeah, what might assist actually is the link to the original cabinet report where the decision was made to actually formulate the shareholder committee, because within that was the full legal advice piece, which set out exactly as you say this particular aspect of the Localism Act that was relied upon, and then the walkthrough as per the overall change. As you say, there's a need to kind of update, but actually this isn't just in line with Ravlin, because we have Portico, we've got a number of existing companies which are trading and acting, which due to the kind of review and best practice documents that legal carried out aren't functioning in kind of the best practice form that we're suggesting here. So actually that cabinet report, which is linked in the background, does set out as quite rightly you've noted, that the rationale and the legal basis for which the decision was taken.
I think that makes me equally worried, really, because there are lots of these. I mean, it doesn't really tell us in the terms of reference who accounts to who and who has the trump card, and it doesn't tell us what to do in the event of a big disagreement. And also, there is a bit of a sense of the administration marking its own homework, which, as members of GASC, regardless of political party, we need to really watch out for that. So I'm not. I mean, I can see what you're trying to do. I can see it's got 3/4 of the way there, but until we've got the wider context, and I have read the original cabinet report, but even that, I think, I mean, every institution, every organisation which are the subject to terms of reference has some kind of guiding principles beyond which things are ultra vires, or beyond which things which are out with the purpose of the organisation. And this isn't quite mentioned enough to me. You start with the purpose of the stakeholder committee, but you don't say what is the purpose of the organisation we're governing. And therefore, it would be very easy for people on the stakeholder committee who are not involved directly in it on a day-to-day basis to get the wrong end of the stick from the outset. And mission drift is a very important thing that governors have to watch out for. So it seems to me that this isn't really quite bedded in the reality of what it is we're trying to do yet. And I'm sorry to be critical. But as I say, I have a very long history in my private career of having done terms of reference for organisations, and I don't think this quite cuts it for me yet, I'm afraid, Chair.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And also as well, the recommendation at 2 does talk around the delegation to the city solicitor to ensure that those necessary constitutional changes are in place. So this document will sit alongside, as I say, the interlink to the constitution. But yeah, I take that point.
But that's why I can't approve it or even comment on it till I've seen the context. And it's very deficient on some things. It's very deficient on telling us what is the nature of the company that we're meant to be on the stakeholder committee for. Is it a non-profit or a for-profit? Is it got an objective of some sort? Has it got we're asked to monitor all that, but we can't say whether a business plan is good, for example, if it isn't known what the organisation is for.
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of why it was kind of vague in that sense, is that this entity will govern all PCC companies. Its formation is there to act as the shareholder. So instead of that being PCC in terms of our existing decision making and going through our normal decision making functions, this will be as per the shareholders agreement that sits with PCC as shareholder and the entity.
Well, I can see that, but I never would never buy shares in something I didn't know what it was doing. So it is, I think it in itself has to have an appendix of all the businesses that are under its umbrella at any particular time. So I really find it difficult with this one. It's so it's out of context for me. I'm quite happy to agree it later on, but I don't understand the context at this moment in time.
Okay.
Well, you're confusing me now, I have to say, Judith, because I didn't read all those things into it that you did. I mean, probably because I'm used to the political proportionality. If there's an overall party in control, well, clearly they will run it anyway. As it's things sit at the minute, of course, there wouldn't be, and therefore there would be people who would want to challenge it. Now, I'm not too. Some of the things that are going to happen, I find it very difficult not having sat on a board of this nature anyway. To see how it's going to go forward, but I think it has to go forward. And Judith, if we hold things up for some time, I don't know that we'll ever get to perfection. A lot of these things, of course, take a while to bed in, and therefore people look at how they could change the constitution or change the terms of reference or whatever it is on it. But the fact of life is that it will be cross-party, and that's correct. And I suspect, as I tried to do, and hope I did, I'm not on it anymore, when we did the Constitution for the Health and Wellbeing Board, to make sure there were no votes at all. Because I thought it was agreed, we couldn't write it in apparently, but we wanted consensus on it. And I think on something as important as this, I would expect whoever's chairing it would be looking for consensus rather than pushing things through. That'll be my experience, Judith. But I don't know what more you want in it, because I think you'd need to say to Sophie what it is, and when we would then get it back. Could we not agree this in principle today, and then just see how it develops once the board's set up? Would you be happy with that, Judith? You're on mute. You're on mute, Judith.
I guess I might be in a minority about being nervous about this, but I would like my concerns to be minuted. Yeah. I don't see anything specifically wrong with this, except it's being produced to us for ratification, noting, whatever it is, in a vacuum. We could be making nuclear weapons, as it stands. We could be trying to rip people off in some way, which I wouldn't like, as it stands. And I don't think I can therefore, and also it doesn't deal with what to do in the event of a big bust up, which all terms of reference need to have. So I'm quite happy if, and I don't, there's nothing wrong with what's written. It's what isn't in it that's wrong. So I'm quite happy if we do go ahead and suck it and see. But if I was ever put on this committee, I would make the same remarks when we first set out, and it might be embarrassing and boring, and everybody would say, oh, it's just Judith being boring about governance. But and we might not get very far at that point.
No, just as you say, Judith, on that point, I think that's exactly right, because you cannot be at this stage, you're being asked, it presumes that it's sign off of key documents, and they're not presented here, but it's envisaged that when the committee is formed, on that first committee, there'll be an incorporation of those members, and they'll be presented with the key documents which are listed there. So it will be it's for them to approve on that first, or a number, I guess, of meetings.
Yeah, I don't think it's exactly. I understand what you're saying there.
You're going mute.
I won't postpone this too long, Chair, because it's a minor part of a meeting with an important agenda. You've expressed that in terms of the duties, but you haven't said what we would do if we didn't approve it, and you haven't given anything in the preamble about what's the overall purpose of these businesses, or what they're trying to do, so that we couldn't make judgment on those documents anyway, really. I'm very happy to talk to you about it later and have a look at it, but it's the purpose of the shareholder committee should always be at the beginning, at the outset. Not the purpose is doing a fair few duties, but the purpose is to further the objectives of the City Council in establishing semi-independent companies, which will probably include this, and this, which come out of the original policy about setting up Ravelin and so forth. Otherwise, it's very rudderless, it seems to me. The purpose is to increase the prosperity of the city of Portsmouth, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, but the purpose isn't to do a number of tasks. The purpose of this is to illustrate what the tasks might be. Otherwise, we would just and it doesn't tell us what would happen if any of us disagreed with any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of these woolly constitutions in local authorities, and I just thought this was the right time to draw attention to some of it. I'm not knocking it done. It just is insufficient.
Councillor Tom Wood.
Yeah, I'm confused about the. I don't see why this document would explain what the companies the council owns does or are for. I mean, partly because obviously that could change as new ones are set up or got rid of, but also presumably each of those companies have their own MEMS and arts, and that's the appropriate place for that information. And I assume that that information is already accessible to all of us as councillors. So I guess I'm just sort of saying I don't see what the problem is.
Yeah.
Well, the problem for me is that it doesn't actually say that in here. It doesn't. It gives us a series of mechanistic things to do, but it doesn't actually say what you've just said, which is very clear. And
but I don't think the document needs to say that companies have their own MEMS and arts. I mean, it doesn't say that the moon is smaller than the Earth, but we can just kind of all take it as read, can't we? Yeah. Like companies do, as a rule.
Yeah. You're right, Judith.
Normally shareholders deal with one company, and this is a kind of unusual local authority type thing to have. I really don't want to dwell on it, but I myself would find it difficult to go to the first meeting of the shareholder committee if I didn't know what would happen if there was a hell of a bust up, or for example.
Well, I see what you're saying, Judith, but I think I think what we need to do is to set up this committee, and this committee can then come up with its refined terms of reference or whatever it's got to do. I don't think anything's perfect when we set it up. So I'm going to move that we accept this report as it is. Including any more information you want to give to Sophie, that's fine. But I move the report. Can I have a seconder? Seconded all over the place. Yeah, okay.
I'll agree with that, providing we do have the chance to revise it and see it in its proper context.
I hope you're on the board. Okay, members. So there's three. Well, I better take a vote on it. All those in favour of recommending the report? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those against? Okay, abstentions. You abstain, Judith. Okay, that's lovely. Thanks very much. Thank you, Sophie. You okay, Sophie, with that one?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then we move on to compliance of gifts and hospitality protocol. I have to say that I always say at every meeting, boringly, it's not the ones that we know, it's the ones that we don't know. But there we are.
Yeah, this is with me as well. So yeah, this is the protocol. The purpose of the report is to update members on any issues regarding the compliance with the gifts and hospitality protocol. And this requires an annual report by the city solicitor, which this is on compliance to enable the committee to make any necessary recommendations, and if not, to note the report. So yeah, there's a clear criteria which has been set out at 4.3. And then we've gone through each of those criteria and listed out those that fall within it, and then listed in the appendices. So it's whether you're happy with the current thresholds, and if that's agreed, then to note this report.
Yeah, it seems to me, though I haven't checked previous papers, that we're getting more reports from people, or people coming forward. Cleaners and all the rest were coming forward with fairly minor stuff. So, I mean, that's got to be a good thing in a way.
Last year was 158 and this year was 157.
Oh, there you are. It's my imagination, Sophie. Thank you. I just think and I don't know what page it is, but Appendix 2, hospitality over £40. At the top of page 2 of that page, we've got our city treasurer, a head of finance, being greedy and going on 2 occasions to, I think it was Dieppe or something, I can't remember. Clearly, that's a duplication.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
You couldn't have gone. You couldn't have gone on the 24th of December and then again on the 30th of December.
I'm not sure if one is the lunch and one's the dinner potentially.
Oh, okay.
No, it's included in both. Yeah, I take that.
You look at that.
Yeah.
Could you also tell me where just at the top there where it says donor something, donor minor? Is that what it says? Donor minor. and then says false, false, false the whole way down. Most of them. What does that mean? Do you know? So,
if I'm presuming if the donor, as in the individual giving the gift, was a minor or not.
What, a kid?
I'm presuming so.
Oh, right. I never thought of that. I thought it was somebody earning less than I was. That's all about minor. I mean, we could pick holes in this if we want to, but members, any particular points or queries on this? Councillor Bowser, please.
Yeah, I've got one, and I think actually it's generally a good thing, because I think we all remember the Wendy Couch situation, which probably prompted all this in the first place.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got an interesting one. I just want to get an idea around it, and it's highlighted in the original report as being a meal out at a restaurant and a donation given.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah,
and it's highlighted in the, I think it's Appendix 2. I just find it curious because did they give a donation, and if so, who did they give a donation to, and what was the value of the donation? Because perhaps if I'm reading this right, they just went out for a meal out at a restaurant, and I don't know whether they were invited there, or it doesn't say if they just booked it as a team meal out.
Yeah.
I would have thought that, and perhaps I'm being overly sensitive, if they went for a meal out at the invite of the restaurant and came to pay the bill, and the restaurateur said no bill, they made some sort of token donation, I still find that a touch uncomfortable, because it's still, the restaurateur is still sort of getting what he was looking for in the good graces of the city council by offering a free meal. Or perhaps I'm just being a touch oversensitive and reading too much into it. It'd be interesting to know what sort of donation was given and who it was given to, because I'm sure the correct thing would have been to have insisted that they paid the bill.
That's a fair point. Fair point. Could you look into that, Sophie?
Yeah, I've noted that.
Yeah, I like the ones underneath that, Simon, where James. Oh, I can't read this; it's too small for me. But two members of staff had to spend an evening listening to Dan Snow, and I just thought serves them right. That was £125 each. Could you imagine that? Oh, truth.
Yeah. That's a couple of hours of his life he's not going to get back anytime soon.
Anyway, any other points?
We'll come along to a governance and audit and standards committee meeting.
Yes. Anyway, happy with that report, members then. And of course, we want to see it. We want to see, I think it just keeps people on their toes when we get these reports. I think they're annual reports, isn't that right? Sophie, remember?
Say that again, sorry.
Yeah.
Annual, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, members, is that okay? Can we note that report?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Sophie. You probably stay on anyway. It's up to you. It's up to you. Okay, thank you for that. Can we go to item 11, internal audit performance status report to the 6th of November 2020? Lizzie and Paul, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies, Paul. I will be able, hopefully, to answer all of your questions. So in relation to our performance report, obviously, we need to tell you whether we are on track to cover all of the work. At the moment, there is a phenomenal amount of work on the table. However, we are working within plan. There is noted on page 388 any ongoing items and involvement.
Oh, right. That's no good for Simon. 388. Let me see if I can get it, Simon.
Page 4, Simon. Page 4.
No.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
So if there is ongoing items of work, then we need to bring it to your attention because it has an impact in relation to the work we're duty bound to do for the plan. So that will narrate, obviously, the pockets that we are involved in. You'll see down there that obviously we have a number of investigations. We're excluding the more contained, smaller investigations, but at a later stage I need to bring a report along to you to highlight all of the items of work. The last time we had committee, I also represented, I think, a revised plan for you, where I also said that we would be doing some assurance work. That work is still ongoing, but at the committee meeting, I think probably in March, I'll be able to pull everything together for you and be able to kind of report. There is some changes that I am proposing, which is to take on board some grant work that we are duty bound to undertake. And obviously, in relation to COVID-19, there was the income loss compensation claim. Again, we have done some work around that. There is 2 stages to it. But you'll notice on page 5 or 3, 8, 9, there are a couple of areas that I am suggesting to take out the plan. And predominantly it's because it's very impractical for us to be able to carry out those items of work. From a risk perspective, whilst we do need to undertake the work at some stage, I'm proposing that I reconsider to put it in the 21-22 plan. So as I move through though, and we come down to page 8 or 392, that gives you narrative around the individual audits that we have completed since the last reporting period and gives you a summary of the results. And if you continue throughout the report, obviously you then have any follow-up work as well that we've undertaken. I have a large admission to make. We had one item of work that was outstanding from last year's plan. That item of work was vessel, which has been concluded. I know you've all received a copy of the report, but I omitted to put it in this report, and it should have done. So I think at the next reporting period, you will have a summarised version so that there is clarity from the public's perspective as to all items of work that we have undertaken. There are no new significant areas of concern. So at this stage, if you had any queries or questions, I'm happy to answer those if you have any.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any, but some of the members. Councillor Bosher.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Going back to little page 4, number 3, you've got a load of bullet points there. Are they effectively the general terms that you've got, Izzy, when it comes to doing audit involvement?
They are, Councillor Bosher. There's a number of obviously activities that fall slightly outside of the normal audit remit. For example, regulatory investigative powers, the anti-money laundering, the financial rules. But because it is work that we undertake and it could have an impact on our statutory work that we fulfil, that is why they're narrated and included in there, so that you know perhaps other pockets of work that we're getting involved in. But they are general types of areas of work activity that we are best placed to undertake.
Within traffic and transportation, we've obviously had the emergency active travel funds and the 2 tranches that we've had. Notwithstanding the controversy around things like Elm Grove cycle lane, seafront closure, Eastern Parade, Eastern Road cycle lane, etc. Obviously, there were big wadges of government money that were attached to those. Would they, and do you intend to include them in any future audit programme? I mean, perhaps I'm just being a little bit mischievous in the fact that one of those bullet points says performance management against it.
Yes, and there are 2 levels why we either have to become involved or it is relevant for us to become involved. So number 1 is where there is a requirement. Most grants, I would say at least 80% of them, require Chief Internal Auditor and the Chief Exec to physically sign them off and do a declaration and return. in relation to the home to school additional pockets of money that we've had in relation to COVID and the ones that we have always had historically, they all require that certification and that sign off. So we are involved. And the nature of what we're involved in is we look at the terms and conditions that were awarded against the pocket of money being granted to us, and we will look at a sample of how the expenditure has occurred and be able to do a return on that basis. There are a couple of areas. For example, you may be familiar with the infection control grant. Other areas such as, and we've only just had kind of a notification that we'll receive a pocket of money in relation to enforcement action, which again the government have handed out. Neither of them have a requirement for audit to get involved for a sign off. However, there is narrative in there that says if you can get an independent party to have a look at it, it would be good practice to do so. And as part of the assurance framework that we do, whilst I don't need to do a physical sign off, we will still do pockets of work, and we have done on the infection control, because it is relevant that it is public money and it is outside of the normal boundaries of other expenditure that we deal with. And it is to enable me to give Chris of Section 151 a level of assurance that we've still gone about processing things in a structured and appropriate manner. So if it's to give you some comfort, so it will either be detailed within the plan or it'll be detailed within our assurance work.
So we will see something at some point then on it.
Yes. Yes, likely if it is a grant verification, and we may have a couple in this particular area. If you were to look at page 10, you will see, for example, we've got disabled facility grant, COVID income loss compensation claim, and the infection control, where I'm actually saying to you, and I know it's a very small paragraph, but I'm saying we were either comfortable and satisfied that they met the conditions or we weren't. And for grants, it is very simple, a yes or no.
Okay, Simon. Yep. Okay, thank you. Councillor Judith Smythe, please.
No, I didn't have anything to say. I was just.
Oh, your hand's up, Judith. Sorry.
No, oh, so sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. That's fine.
I'll lower it. I was looking at that same page, and actually, while I am here, you've got on that page you've referred us to, Lizzie. That's page 10. You've got the reasonable assurance on the payroll and expenses to Solent LEP. Just as an example, what would have it was this employees not completing the expenses assessment, which is expenses are really dodgy area anyway. Would you'd have done something about that, would you? Or?
Yes, we would have done. The reason the Solent LEP is included is because they A, were the accountable body, and B, they sign up to the bulk of all of our rules and regulations. So in relation to that particular area, we were looking at, and they have historically, and there's been a small impact for COVID, but not reduced too much. They do a phenomenal amount of travel. And obviously the boundaries around the 60 miles is we've got an HMRC link to it. And there are examples where it is appropriate, but they need to seek the appropriate waiver or authorization kind of in advance. So reasonable assurance has been given because on the whole for the area that we looked at, they had very sound and good controls in place. There were some examples, be it that they were minor, that needed to have a reminder, I suppose, to go down the prescribed path.
It's implied here that it's one person anyway, which isn't very much. I was just trying to work out what happens once you've raised that. Does it then taken up by
I actually
the chair or?
I actually present to and forgive me because I often, although Sophie's about, so Sophie will remember that. So it's funding, finance, performance and something else panel that we go along to. So it gets presented to members there, but like all of our other audits, there are agreed actions. So they have to sign up to say how they're going to mitigate the risk exposure, however great that risk exposure is. So yes, and we will do a follow-up at a later stage as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any other points, members? Okay, well, thank you, Lucy. And okay, members, the recommendation, we note the audit performance and results for 2021 to the 6th of November. Is that okay? We agree those recommendations. Thank you. Thank you, Lucy. Sophie, you're back on again. I'd missed you. I would have put all yours together. This is the old chestnut that we come up with, right? I don't know what the change happened on the 25th of November or whatever, but or 6th November, because we had it at the last meeting. And this is just for members' benefit to say, you know, it's to have a wide a pool as much as we can when there's complaint against members for the initial meeting, and then if it's moved upwards to the complaint committee. Members, no problems with this in the past. Is that okay? Is that agreed?
Yeah, it's something we do every single year, Chair, isn't it?
Well, we've done it several times this year, apparently. But yes, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Sophie, sorry, I would have let you in there, but...
No problem. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Data security breach report, we've got Lizzie and Helen. Okay, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Helen obviously knows all of the technical areas, but I don't know if you will recall the last time that we presented a report to you was probably back in March of this year. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to revisit the nature of the content of the information that we were presenting to you. So this for the first time, and it would be wonderful to have feedback as to whether you think it is providing the right information or whether there's additional information you think that we should provide. But it is to give you a analysis over the last year of the incidences that have occurred, where those incidences have occurred, where, for example, and apologies, Simon, because there isn't page numbers on these.
Right.
They wouldn't fit, and I kind of made the decision that as we'd have the numbers at the end, but I will make certain we put something in for next time for you. But obviously, once there is a potential breach of data, then there is a response time that the service, once they are made aware themselves or they identify themselves that there's been a breach, need to communicate that, because Helen and her team make an assessment as to whether it needs to go through to the ICO for reporting. So the first pie chart is to give you an overshot really of response times and whether we were within the 72 hours or not. Moving on in relation to the medium that's narrated, that again is to give you an overview as to the nature of the breach. Now, there are quite a few occasions where it is not only that it is an email, but it may have been a letter, or it's a laptop and it will also contain emails. So again, it is to kind of show you where we believe the breakdowns are, which particular medium has a significant impact or is hit with data breaches. And obviously it is across each of the relevant directorates. The number impacted would be the physical number of individuals that we are aware of. Where we do not have sufficient information, then there is an assessment made by Helen and her team. Moving on to the next pie chart is the root cause. So the root cause is when there is an investigation, be it an investigation within the service or an investigation carried out by Helen and her team or other parties, as to why we had the data breach, and you can see there are columns there for whether it is cyber, whether it's human error, whether it was a deliberate criminal act, so forth. And obviously, moving on, we've got the action taken. It goes without say that apologies are given on every single occasion, which is why we have not factored this in. So, as I said, in relation to the pie charts and the bar charts that are in there, they are an analysis across a year. So to help inform you as to where we have had data breaches and the nature of those data breaches. Then when we come on to the very last element, which is the data breach summary, those are data breaches that have been reported and the actions taken since the last reporting period. So Helen, I'm sure, Helen, was there anything that you wanted to add that you think I have missed?
No, thank you. No, as you said, it would just be useful to get some feedback as to whether you think this new format is informative. I think it certainly gives you a better idea of what sort of breaches have occurred, and it gives you more information in an easily visible format. But you know, we will be happy to take your feedback, and if there's any adjustment you would like going forward, then we can work on that for you.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of questions, but I'll just say I've just got a message from Councillor Ferret to say he's now on the call. Okay, Vicky.
Yes, Chair, that's fine. Councillor Ferret, do you have any declarations of interest, please?
Yeah, just to confirm, I'm here now. No, I have no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Well, thanks, John, and welcome to the meeting. The format I like, I have to say, but I'm not too sure where it says human error. I accept that. I've made so many mistakes in my own life, but where it says inappropriate action by staff, I'm not sure what happens then. I mean, presumably it's rectified in some way, but is it, and there aren't many of them, to be fair. And some, in fact, we've referred upward. But what happens when a member of staff we believe has done something inappropriate and probably deliberately, which is what I say. Sorry.
So if that's the case, then our formal action policy would be followed. So we have a route of working with HR as well to make sure appropriate action is taken and that is consistent across the organisation. So yes, you're right. This would be where a member of staff has deliberately breached the act. So it might be where they have accessed records without a business need to. That's probably the most common, although there haven't been very many. That would be the most common reason in that particular category. So where a member of staff has access to a system for their business needs, but they might have looked at something that they didn't need to for some sort of personal gain.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Judith Smythe, please.
Thank you for saying this is a new format of report, because I certainly didn't recognise seeing it before. I'm not sure if it shows us enough the scale of the problem. I mean, we don't seem to have had any awful things that you do hear about emails being sent to thousands of people with the wrong information in it, or on the face of it, Children's Family and Education have got the most of those. But is that they seem to be individuals who've made human errors, and it's easy enough. Do those, just drilling down a little bit so that I understand a bit more about how this works, would there have to be a complaint about it? I mean, somebody would have to discover it had happened, wouldn't they? Or somebody would have to fess up and say it had happened. Is this therefore just, the first question is this therefore the tip of an iceberg? And if nobody's complained about it, how is a sufficient an apology to an individual enough, and so forth? And second of all, is there any reason why we should look at children, families and education? I'm on that committee, and draw have a collective training on the thing or on otherwise? Do you see the two areas I'm interested in there?
Of course. So yes, it's true to say there will be data breaches that we aren't aware of, and in a lot of cases we are reliant on somebody raising a concern or making a complaint. Often though, it will be a member of staff who has noticed after pressing the send button that they have sent something to a wrong address. So it will be a member of staff who has come forward and told us about the error. But there are also some auditing processes that take place. So, for example, in adult social care, they will routinely audit use of the system. So they will be able to compare a social worker's caseload, for example, to cases they have accessed. And if there are exceptions where a social worker has looked at a case that isn't part of their caseload, they would be asked to say why they've accessed that. So we're doing more of that. I'm currently working with children's social care to get something similar in place. They've recently had a new system, so we're working with them to get something in place so that there is this routine auditing, and the GDPR does ask us to do that. So there's much more onus placed now on proactively auditing systems or processes to make sure we are identifying breaches rather than relying on people making a complaint or raising a concern. So that certainly is the case. Your second question, Councillor Smythe, you said something else that you were interested in knowing. Sorry.
Would you mind if I pick up? Because I believe, Councillor Smythe, you were saying about children's services, that there seemed to be a disproportionate amount that are on children's services. And Helen, there is an information governance board, is there not, to which you chair? To which I come along to. There are representatives from across the council. I think we've had it on our radar that children's services, there has been a higher hit of data breaches. So we're actually working with relevant people to understand and unpick why it is we have had some reoccurring, and whether it is really what it is they think to begin with, or whether there is other actions that need to kind of be taken. And it's also gone to the information, not to the information, to the corporate governance board. So the likes of the chief exec is also aware that we will do further work.
I think you might have anticipated my follow-up question on that, which was there's a lot of practical barriers to working effectively around children in need that are to do with not being able to share information. And very often places have either co-located staff to get around that, or the second thing they've done in good faith and properly within the law, or they've got permission of the client to share information. You can't work in a multidisciplinary team unless you can share information, for example, with the NHS or the mental health services or whatever. Is any of this confused by that, or is there clarity about that?
There's definitely clarity about that. We are fortunate enough to have our partnership information governance specialist. So a post was created especially to proactively look at the information sharing needs between the council and our partners in the city, and that really is working very well. So I don't think that is a particular issue, but certainly, as Lizzie said, we are working with staff in children's social care, the Caldecott Guardian, who Denise Lingham. I've got meetings with her and other senior members of the team to look at what the root cause of those issues is and how we can instigate some more checking procedures. And some of those are difficult at the moment, obviously, with staff working from home as well. So we've got that to factor in. But for every breach that occurs, part of my team's action is to work with the team where the error occurred to see what can be done to prevent it happening again. Yes, there are seem to be a lot of breaches in children's social care. they are dealing with a high volume of personal data. That's obviously a factor. They do seem to have a good reporting procedure as well, so that possibly is another factor. But yeah, we are working with them. Something else on the email front as well, you will see from the report that a high percentage of the breaches occur as a result of emails being sent to the wrong address. The Microsoft Office 365 suite of products that the council are in the process of bringing in will give us some tools. And I was in a meeting this morning talking about some rules that we can set up. So the system is clever enough to identify if you're sending, for example, an email that contains personal data of various kinds. It can pick that up. If you're sending it to an external email address, it can flag up a prompt that says, I notice this contains personal data. You're sending it outside the council. Have you checked the email address or whatever? We can design that, and we're in the process of designing those rules at the moment and making those as meaningful and useful as possible. So I think that definitely will help. But it's not just an issue within the council. Across the nation, the most common source of data breaches is email. That it goes for all organisations, I think. But and you know, people like Microsoft have realised that and have designed these data loss prevention tools, as they call them. So that's something that we are designing specifically for our Portsmouth's use, and we'll tailor that to our needs. So,
lastly, I think it's a good thing that you've looked at the number of people impacted, and it's there that you can see, even in the housing and housing area where it's terribly easy to send out to all tenants or all tenants in a particular block, the numbers are actually mercifully very small here still. So thank you for including that, because it helps us to. I think we all think about the sort of mass press all, and those things do get into the public domain, of course. But I think this is a useful report. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Judith. Councillor Simon Bosher.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I don't know how easy it's going to be to answer this one, Helen, but it was just a comparison between two. Sorry if I'm looking sideways. I'm reading another computer screen here. In your appendix, which is data breaches summary, your 1, 2, 3, fourth one down is personal data disclosed without consent, and its root cause inappropriate action by staff. And about another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 below that, you've got personal data disclosed in error by email, which is classed as human error. Now, without going into the details of the two, because I'm not overly interested in the background as such, what sort of constitutes the difference between inappropriate action and human error? Because to me, they are potentially very similar, and I guess it's probably more to do with the individual cases, is it?
I think inappropriate action we would determine as something that was done knowingly, and you know, somebody's done something on purpose. So that particular example, a member of staff picked up a letter that was addressed to another member of staff that was on their desk and opened that letter. So they have knowingly looked at data that they shouldn't have done. And the other case was a mistake. So that's how we would distinguish between those two.
So the personal data disclosed without consent was somebody reading somebody else's personal mail, was it?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay. All right, sir.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other points, members? Okay, well, thank you. Can we note that report? Thank you very much, Helen and Lizzie. Thank you. Right, members, we're moving on to the last item. Item 14 is exclusion of the press and the public. What we have is a report in the public domain, but then we've got some reports with much more confidential information that can pinpoint individual members of the public or members of staff. So will members need to go into the exempt reports?
No.
because we'll need to leave this meeting, as you know, anyway, and go to another one. Okay, then. So I'll move exclusion of the press and public if we have to go into exempt section. For the minute, then we'll just have the procurement management report, the white bits of paper that we got in the public domain. Richard, you're around somewhere.
Good afternoon,
There
Chair.
you are.
Yep.
Hi, Richard.
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Brilliant. Okay. Apologies, but just to let you know, my son's just come home from school, so he might come bounding in excited at any moment for tea and biscuits. So apologies in advance to the committee. But I'll take you through the paper now. So essentially, I've repeated the format from last time, which the committee stated was an improvement from previous reports. So I've tried to keep it as that, and hopefully in time we'll build upon and improve it as well. The report does cover some of the last quarter that was reported, because the cycle has come around 2 months after the last committee meeting. Hence, there's going to be a little bit of duplication in respect of waivers and KPIs. So going through the report, it's the three main areas as last time. So spend compliance, contract awards via waiver, and contract management performance reporting. So going through the first part in respect of spend compliance, we have effectively maintained the raw compliance. So there's still some work to be done to increase the level of raw compliance, i.e. make sure that all of our service areas are getting contract entries up on the Intend system as per the transparency code. We have now got 2 new members of the team in procurement on admin, and also a new member of the team who is joining us and is now in her second week on more of a contract management role. Okay. So whilst we've struggled to get a further advance on the compliance there from the last committee meeting, that we do now have the resources in place to hopefully kick on from where we are and move that compliance information up further. That will have to happen as well as part of the Fusion project, where we're updating our Oracle system. So that's going to move into the cloud and have additional functionality, and that's going to need for a higher level of contract information to be on our systems. In respect of the compliance information by service area, this does come with the health check, which is there and earlier in the report in respect of the spend information coming from finance system and from the port system. It's not currently covering spend information from adult social care's Controc system or children's social care's Mosaic system, which are 2 other things that we're going to be looking at and using our new contract management resource to hopefully progress on. But in terms of where we are with adult services, no concerns there. Children, families and education, no concerns there. There is some above 100k spend, which is as per the report last time, which comes into decisive user choice in respect of out of city area education placements. No significant issues in respect of corporate services. No issues in respect of culture. There is one contract which is around about £60,000 for a consultancy appointment, which we will engage with the relevant officer in culture to understand what's happened there, whether it needs to have a waiver put in place or whether they did obtain quotes, but we just haven't got visibility on the system. Moving through, no concerns of the executive, no concerns with finance. Housing, there was a couple of above 100k contracts there relating into electrical servicing and maintenance, where we do know contracts are in place. It's just the case that the system requires updating. So again, some more work there for our now better resourced admin function and our contract management business partner. No concerns at the port, no concerns at public health. Regeneration, there's no major concerns there. We've still got the same one from last time in respect of the asset manager at Lakeside, which I'll speak to Tom Southall about. I think with regeneration, though, we do need to do some work to engage with that service to get their compliance in terms of contracts up on the system at a better percentage. So that's something that our admin function and our contract management partner will work on over the next quarter. So that essentially is section one. I can answer any sort of general questions from the top level report. If we want to go into any more detailed questions, then I can deal with that in the exempt section of the committee meeting.
Okay. Any questions or points, members, on that section of the public report? Councillor John Ferret.
Thank. Yeah, my question, Richard, was on PPE. Clearly, that's been a very topical issue nationally.
Yes.
And it says in the report, clearly, there have been contract waivers, which I think we can understand. It's just, and it talks about in future it being procured through a central government portal, which seems to have taken a long time to set up, but nevertheless is welcome. How have we been deciding, do you know, in terms of awarding those contracts up to now? How have the providers been selected if there's no procurement exercise or competition such for the contracts?
Essentially, being candid with you, in the early days, Councillor Ferret, we had to shop around. So we couldn't just use our corporate contractors because there was scarcity in supply, which that meant we had to go outside. So our general starting point was to look at existing framework agreements of the likes of Crown Commercial Service, Eastern Shires Purchasing Organisation, or look at who the NHS is also using. Anytime we onboarded a new supplier, though, we did follow up each time with our supplier requirements questionnaire, which goes through mandatory and discretionary exclusions as per public contract regulations. So that covers sound legal standing. We went through client references, and we went through checking insurances and other things are in place as per standard. And we did that whether that was a framework provider that we were picking up or with what we'd term as a new entrant to the market. We had to do a little bit of business with what we'd term as new entrants. Apologies, I just need to close my kitchen door. I'm very, very sorry about that.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so essentially we had to start also doing business with some new suppliers, and each time we did follow up with the supplier requirements questionnaire and so forth. We did a lot of benchmarking across prices. So we only used any new suppliers into the market where effectively they had very good costs. And each time that we were purchasing products, we didn't just rely upon the safety certification. We put that safety certification out to our trading standards. And we also went as far as employing a testing house where we would send products to in case there was any particular issues to get further tested. And where it's been appropriate, we've actually got refunds. So we've got a high level of confidence that we have not fallen foul of doing business with people that we shouldn't be doing business with as a public sector organisation, falling foul of paying over the odds, because we have shopped around and benchmarked and checked. And we're a member of the Central Buying Consortium, which is districts and unitary authorities all across the south up to the South Midlands, and we've shared a lot of benchmarking and supplier information there as well, which has given me confidence. And again, in respect of double checking the products and so forth, we did develop a very good working relationship with our own trading standards of Richard Lee and Andrew Townley, and went as far as actually getting some products tested. So we compared to some of the scare stories, and not scare stories is the wrong term because that would imply that there isn't any problems there, but compared to some of the stories that you would have read with central government on PPE, I'm in a comfortable position in respect of how we've engaged there. Going forward, we generally only work with our framework providers now that we have existing contracts with, but we're actually not buying directly anymore. Central government has said to us, go through the portal, because central government has built up their own buffer stock now. And if we don't go through the portal, then and we continue to buy directly ourselves, then they might not recompense us for that expenditure. So we're working, we're getting deliveries through the portal. We're still having the weekly meetings in respect to PPE. That work stream is less intensity, but it hasn't gone. And we're getting deliveries through. I think there is still some improvement that the central government portal needs to make in terms of having the reliability on those deliveries and a bit more visibility on where those deliveries are in the process. But we're feeding those back, and we still have a decent buffer stock in place just in case, and we've maintained those supply relationships. So we know that if anything was to fall down with the portal, that we know what the lead times are for products. We're keeping those relationships going, so if we do have to turn back on, which we've had a mandate from Gold, if that does happen, to effectively get that moving, that we can go to suppliers again quickly. Sorry, darling.
All right, John.
Yeah, I'd just say thank you for that, Richard. It does sound like we've been very diligent, perhaps more diligent than central government have been. I did just check a couple of companies last night to make sure there's no ex-government ministers on the board, so didn't look like there were. So, yeah, thanks for the report, Richard.
Okay, thank you, John. Councillor Judith Smythe.
I was going to raise very much the same question, so I won't go with that. I mean, I think just in general, I really like the way you do this report, and I think it does reassure me that we're doing, under the circumstances, pretty well. And if you look at there's a sort of creeping improvement between June, July, August to August, September, October with your red, amber and gold. I wonder if perhaps once a year it would be useful to just do a comparison with over a slightly longer timescale, because it just looks as if it's got a little bit better, even though we've still been under COVID and everything. So well done. Yeah, I feel reassured by this report.
Thank you, Councillor Smythe, and certainly with the contract management officer that we've now recruited, we're going to be in a better position to be able to take those KPI reports forward, and there is work, I think, to be done to simplify the KPI reporting and make it so it's relevant and proportionate more to the organisation, and then we'll be able to provide a bit more comparative reporting, so it's not just on a quarter basis. We can dice it up however you like, really.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Do you want to move on to section 2?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So section 2 is contract award via waiver. As I say, there is significant dovetailing between the last committee report. So it still has the significant direct award waiver for the extension of the waste contract, which is going to skew the value of the business as usual direct award. Beyond that, there's no significant direct award waivers really, which has caused me any concern. You've in the exempt report, it lists all of the waivers there. So obviously, if there's any detailed questions that you'd like to ask if we move into exempt session, I'll be more than happy to answer those. In terms of the waivers agreed due to COVID-19, that has slowed down. We did have a flurry of, particularly in social care contracts, where we just couldn't retender those as the envisaged timescales, partly because of the contract managers having to move into different roles as part of COVID response and the supply base being under significant pressure. But we've got good programs in place now for taking those procurements forward, and we haven't agreed any any extensions beyond what is absolutely needed to effectively re-procure, but again without putting our own organisation under significant stress and potentially going out with ill thought out specifications. So we've been sensible on that basis. I think there is still probably some others that are going to be coming forward, so in less volume, but there will be some other contracts I'm sure that will require a bit more extension outside of term. But as long as we are sensible and proportionate in making those extensions, and as long as we are transparent to the market, so what we'll do, and you would have noted from the exercise we've done on the waste contract, any significant extension outside of term of any significant value that will cause us a friction with the regulations, we will usually issue an award notice in the official journal, and that will tell the market why we're doing this, for how long we're doing it, and also provide the market with reassurance in terms of what the tendering programme is coming up for that particular contract. And that's an approach that we've done a number of times and seems to work very well. In terms of waivers in response to COVID, again, this is a bit skewed because we've got a dovetailing of quarters here. So I expect that for the next committee report, that number will go down significantly, particularly in relation to us not buying PPE directly ourselves and accessing via the government portal. So that's going to take a lot of spend off of the reports and a lot of waivers off. Again, in relation to demand for food, IT equipment, we've still got some other waivers that have come through in relation to the next stages on for non-statutory homeless. So you'll note that there was a waiver for a security contract, and that was to maintain continuity from the security firm that the Ibis hotels had employed, so that we've got the same security firm and, importantly, operatives that know that know the users of the services very well, and that's enabled us to get into a better position in terms of the contracts for the new accommodation and providing the reassurance to those accommodation providers, and also reassurance to police, reassurance to the users themselves as well. So that's an above threshold appointment, but made from my point of view for very sound reasons. I think that is essentially the waivers. So that's section 2. So is there any questions from the committee at this point on section 2?
Well, I hope not, in the sense that if you finish the report, it'd be easier, then we might come back to that, Richard. If you do section 3, and then we'd have this bit finished, if that's okay with you. I know there's not much on it, but yeah.
And so section 3 is the contract management KPI indicators. There is still work to be done there, and as I say, we have got a better resource in procurement now to take that forward. We don't have any red contracts where contracts are failing to a point where we don't think things can be turned around with the supplier, and we might well be moving into full termination. There's a number of ambers, and you see from the exempt report the reasons that have come directly from the contract managers. That is directly from the contract managers, so that's not had any tidying up from procurement. So looking at those amber KPIs, again, reading through it, looks like the contracts themselves, there's either issues which are more to do with administration processes or business processes rather than the core function of the contract not being delivered. And there's some areas where it appears that actually the amber KPI has been calculated incorrectly, and the officers that have inputted that didn't mean to come out with that result, which again I think gives weight to the need for us to review and simplify the KPI process so that potentially there's maybe just one question rather than 3, which I think sometimes confuses the contract managers that are updating. There's still also work to be done, I think, to make sure that the KPIs are being completed promptly. And this also links into the need for us to get all of the contracts up on the register as per Transparency Code. So we've maintained the level of performance, but I do think that there is certainly room for improvement, and I've certainly have plans and now resource in place to take that forward.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Members, any points or comments on sections 2 and 3 of Richard's report? Happy enough? Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's it, members. We decided not to go into exempt because members are happy with the just seeking questions on this. So can I thank everybody for coming to the meeting today? And thank the officers and Vicky and Peter Smith-Parkin there for doing this bit. And I'll see you at the next meeting, and all the best then. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you.
Cheers. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
Leo.
weekend, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.
Yeah, cheers.
Bye all.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.